Hello, I'm Melinda Hindenburger, and this is Woman Up, Politics Daily's online Sunday show, and your antidote to too many men on your TV screen. In a recent speech at Georgetown University, retired Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor joked, "Gosh, I step away for a couple of years and there's no telling what's going to happen." Only some of us aren't laughing. The court's 5-4 ruling freeing corporations to spend all the money they like on political campaigns was a moment that made Politics Daily columnist Jill Lawrence think, what if? What if O'Connor, a supporter of campaign finance regulation, had not left the court in '06 to care for her sick husband who died in November? Based on O'Connor's previous rulings and statements, it's almost certain the vote would have been 5-4 the other direction. And legal scholars say O'Connor's departure has had a similar effect, or will have one, in other big cases involving race, religion, abortion, and the death penalty. O'Connor never intended to end her career so prematurely. If not for her family situation, she said she probably would have worked until she died or became incapacitated, just like most other justices. Most of them get ill and are in really bad shape, which I would have done at the end of the day myself, I suppose, she said, except my husband was ill and I needed to take action there. Which is an understandable decision, but is it one that any male justice with an ill spouse has made? Can and should a spot on the Supreme Court really be a family-friendly post? Jill Lawrence, you did our main story today on Politics Daily on this issue. Has any male justice in history made the sort of decision that O'Connor made to take care of an ill family member?
I think that we kind of know the answer to that, given the roles that men and women play. I talked to 3 legal scholars, and no one can think of anyone. In fact, Marcia Greenberger from the National Women's Law Center said, Jill, can you get a pad and a piece of paper so you can list all these male justices that have quit to take care of their families? And then she said, none. It's just, you know, it's like most career people, women are the caretakers and the caregivers.
Patricia Murphy, should this be a family-friendly job? I mean, is it such a bad thing that it plays out this way? Yeah.
Well, you know, I think for people who wanted to see her making more of the types of decisions that she was making, obviously they wanted her to stay there. But I think it's interesting that since she has stepped down, she's actually been one of the very few living, engaged, post-Supreme Court jurists who now is going out and speaking. She's doing a lot of writing. She started a website for children to learn about the Supreme Court. So it's a really unusual sort of lesson in civics that she is giving every day. Because she's no longer in the Supreme Court, she can actually speak her mind more, and she can tell us more about what it's like to be on the Supreme Court and why it's important, and tell children why it's important to be engaged. So I think she's continuing to do her duty, obviously. But I think it's just this horribly tragic personal story that we're learning about her.
Sad story.
Yeah, but I think she's continuing to give in other ways, which is still wonderful.
Sure. Her husband, of course, had Alzheimer's disease and fell in love, which I gather is not uncommon in the nursing home. And she, I thought, it was such a testimonial to the strength of their relationship that she was happy for him and would go visit him and watch him and his girlfriend hold hands was the story. Emily Miller, are there jobs like being on the Supreme Court or President of the United States in which you really don't put your family first and maybe shouldn't?
Well, I think just speaking personally, I think relationships always come first before your job. That's just how I feel. But this is a hypothetical issue whether she would have affected the vote. But remember, she was appointed by Ronald Reagan, so it's not going to have swung the Supreme Court very much either way. I think the bigger question, though, here is why are we debating whether someone should step away from their job and take care of their family when we're in a recession? We have 10% unemployment and job creation's low. I mean, who has the luxury to do that? I don't. I don't know who does. I know very few families do.
I guess the question is whether men should step up more often, whether we should see men in powerful positions not just saying they want to spend more time with their family when they're actually being kicked to the curb, but actually doing it occasionally.
Well, let me just go back to something you just said, Emily, not to, I love you, but.
I can see what's coming.
Okay,
It would
here we
have made
go.
a huge difference if she had been, if she had stayed on the court.
How
In
do
the, in the important, I covered the court for 9 years, so and I'm a lawyer. So, but she in this
Touché.
particular case that President Obama discussed in his State of the Union speech, where essentially, and I'm not a believer in corporate speech equaling free speech. I think they're two entirely different things. But the conservative majority, if she had been there and not been replaced by Roberts or Alito, the 5-4 decision would have been in favor of keeping the lid on corporate
And if
spending.
Rehnquist hadn't
But-
died, I mean, you know, all
yeah,
this
but
is so irrelevant at this
it would have
point.
made a difference. But I also want to get back to there's something in between, okay, that we're not considering here. There's something called going to senior status. And Brennan, I remember, you know, in his late 80s, early 90s, a number of them when I was covering the court from 89 to 98 went to senior status, which means they usually did it because they were getting so old they couldn't function at full speed anymore. But it would be interesting to see if any of them went to senior status to help an ailing spouse.
A quick point, though, about men who leave jobs for their family. I think journalists in particular are too cynical when men say, I'm stepping away for family reasons. Nobody ever believes a man when they say it.
That's
they
such
always
a
believe a woman.
Because it's rarely true.
Yeah,
Because they're
I
having
think
affairs like John Edwards.
I
Ritter in
think
Colorado.
more and more you see that women too say it when they don't mean it. So I don't know if that's really particularly
But Bill Ritter,
progress.
Bill
Such a
Ritter
good
just said
point.
he's not running again for governor of Colorado because he really wants to spend
Bill
time with his
Ritter
family.
is the
And nobody
rare
believed him.
politician,
gonna
and
lose.
I do. I actually, knowing Bill Ritter, I really did believe him saying
You know, I
that.
just wanna-
But I wanted to ask you, Jill, whether you think that it's important that, or will be helpful at all, that Sonia Sotomayor is single and childless. I mean, is that an important
I mean,
quality?
you know,
Does
what
that
if her
help?
mother got sick? You know,
Right.
she might step
Not
down.
her adorable mother. We couldn't bear
Not that I'm, you know, wishing anything on
Selena.
anyone, but any circumstances can occur, and of course, all
Right.
family situations are different. I mean, I think one alternative we haven't discussed here is balance. I mean, Rehnquist's wife had cancer, and he did not leave the court, but my guess is that they lived in Washington. The roots of the O'Connor family are in Phoenix. Her son, at least one son, probably all three are in Phoenix. Her husband was not going to be here with her while the family was out there, so
And he
she
had
had to
given up
make a
his career
choice.
for her in a lot
Right,
of
and that was the other thing.
Right.
He had a very
Right.
good partnership at a legal firm in Phoenix, and he gave that up for her. So writers have said that, you know, there is a certain symmetry in her giving back to him.
Although I think there are a lot of careers in government, in journalism for that matter, in which balance is really just a word.
It doesn't
Well,
mean
and
perfect.
the stakes
We
are not
only-
usually this high. I mean,
That's
the stakes
correct.
in this
That's
situation
really
are
correct.
so high. She's one of 9 people in the whole country
Right.
making final decisions on so many issues. As someone said, all the high-profile issues that affect everyone's personal lives.
But Chris Dodd
And
said no one's irreplaceable.
I very much
She said that too.
appreciate Barack Obama, as much as he talks about fatherhood, also saying, you know, I am putting this job before my family. I mean, as President of the United States, it would be, you know, the day-to-day reality is that. So I just wanted, before we only have a few seconds, has there been a time in each of your lives when you've really put your job second, or when you've quit, scaled back? Emily, I know you have.
Really?
Sure. When you quit your job on Capitol Hill?
Oh wow. Okay, scandal time. Well, yeah, I was engaged. My fiance bought a house
I'm not
on my
asking
back.
you to go there.
But there's that.
But yes, so you did.
But
yes.
no, but that wasn't. But I mean, the thing is that except for a brief period of time, which we can all read in the newspapers, I've never been married. I don't have family money, so I've taken care of myself.
We
That
got
would be a
20
luxury.
seconds, Jill.
My husband actually gave up a good job at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette to move here to marry me. So,
And my husband quit when we moved to Rome to become a Roman soccer dad. How sad for him. How about you?
Never have had to, but wouldn't think twice about doing it if it became necessary.
Patricia.
I left New York, which I loved, to marry a man who I loved more. So yes, I have.
Okay, so we're ending on that lovely note. See you next week. Thank you very much for joining us.